Who better to talk about marketing for dentists than a dentist who's tried many, many, many different marketing things himself? That's my guest today. I'm very curious what he has to say, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I hope you are too. I'm Carl White, principal at Mark Advisory Group, which is a healthcare marketing agency, and I'm also the host of Practice Care. The mission for both is the same, and that's to help private practice owners stay private. Not only is that what they really want, but let's face it, care is better when it's just you and your provider sitting at the table trying to figure out what's best for you. And nobody else is secretly whispering in that provider's ear what their own agenda is. Whether it's a hospital, a health system, other owners, private equity, DSO, whoever it is, when you own the place, you've got more clinical freedom. And it just seems to me that's better care for your patient. And my guest today is Dr. Bobby Grossi. Dr. Grossi is a compassionate dentist, motivational speaker, and author committed to making a positive impact in the lives of others. He provides free dentistry to those without insurance every year and actively participates in his community. In addition, Dr. Grossi is a youth baseball team coach and enjoys spending time with his family. And at Grossi Dental and Wellness, he offers comprehensive care for patients to ensure they achieve optimal health in their body, mind, and spirit. His unwavering dedication to excellence in patient care has earned him a reputation as a trusted and respected dental professional. Bobby, thank you for spending some time.
Hey, Carl, thank you so much for having me.
I've been looking forward to this one. So I want to start with you where I start with a lot of guests, your bios. The bio is kind of brief. That's the point, but I want you to fill it in. And what I'm really curious about is you are still a practicing dentist. You've been doing that for some time, but you've added on a lot more stuff. You coach others, you consult, you have a podcast, like you do a lot of other stuff going on. Kind of give us the evolution of that.
Well, I mean, it almost has to go full circle. Like you got to know where I started from, right? And born and raised in Flint, Michigan by a single mom. I can remember when I was 8 years old riding this big wheel, and it sounds, I don't know if you know what big wheels were, but little big wheels, right? I was riding a big wheel and I heard this voice in my head said, you were meant for something different. So I thought I was going to be a baseball player. I had a scholarship to play baseball at D1 school. And then my grandfather, who was my father, left when I was about 2 years old. And so my grandfather kind of mentored me, and I found out he got throat cancer. And so February 3rd of 1994, 9 days. So I didn't go to college, and I was working on music at the time. And then February 3rd of 1994, 9 days before my 21st birthday, he died of throat cancer. And it was that moment, who my wife is now, but was my girlfriend at the time. And I said, you know what? I think I want to make a difference somehow in medicine. I don't want other families to go through what I've witnessed watching my dad, my grandfather, who I call my father, pass away of throat cancer. So I knew I was gravitating towards the health field. I just didn't know. I didn't know if it was medicine at first or dentistry. And I picked dentistry because, one, my dad wasn't around. I thought dentistry was more of a 9-to-5 job, which that's kind of a joke in there. That might be not true. I'm 50 years old, so I didn't want to be married to my pager per se. Like I didn't have to have someone dictate my schedule, where I wanted to control my own schedule, but I wanted to make a difference. So then I chose, literally at the hefty age of 21, that I'm just going to be a dentist. And that's kind of how I live my life. I got blinders on. I go after it. Finally graduated dental school at 30 years old. And I knew once I got into dentistry, at first I was all about, okay, how do I take care of the patients, and what do I do with the patients? And it was all about care. And I was looking at oral cancers and stuff. Then as I got into it, I realized I was gravitated towards something else. I think I had a story of my upbringing of coming from nothing and becoming something. And because I practiced in Flint, Michigan, a lot of my patients coming in had very similar stories, but was looking for a mentor, looking for guidance, looking for something that might give them that extra lift. And, we're very diverse in Flint. We're very diverse, color, races, ethnicities, whatever it is. And so I'm like, man, what better way to maybe help the youth with maybe telling them my story. So it really just started out by telling my story. And then all of a sudden I gravitated towards patients, started doing free care, because I can remember what it was like not having money, not being able to go to doctors. I remember all that. And, the old adage, Carl, is don't ever forget where you come from. I'm not saying you should forget where you come from. I never do, but it doesn't mean you don't better yourself, and you can better the community around you. So I was like, what could be the greatest impact I can have that's asking for nothing, not asking for a sale, but how do you create the legacy to honor your grandfather, to honor your mom who made $18,000 a year, to give back to a community that's so gracious to you? So then I started doing free days of dentistry. And I was like, wait a minute, there's another message in there. So I realized I was getting lit up, never getting a dollar mentoring youth, mentoring kids, doing podcasting, speaking about my life, helping people, do things. And so then I created the the podcast, then I wrote the book Destiny's Not Hereditary. It's all because I just want to give people hope in a world that maybe sometimes we just don't have hope. So really my practice built organically initially by me just extending myself, and then all of a sudden people gravitate towards me. But that's a little quick synopsis of all the little pieces. And then baseball is just my love. You'll see my ring. Well, you can't see my ring on the podcast, but I have a ring that's a baseball stitch. All my logos have a baseball diamond behind it with the G in the middle. The G really represents my grandfather, Grassi. I was actually Loomis until I was 18. But once my grandfather passed away, I changed my name to my mom's maiden name to honor my grandfather. So everything you see around me is to honor a man who kind of paved my life for me. And so I dedicated my life to help in health and wellness. And that's why you see the wellness piece, because I believe I'm a dentist, yes, but I'm a doctor first. And then I try to circumference everything under that umbrella. So that's kind of a quick synopsis.
All right. It's more the story than I realized the first time you and I talked, and it's, you can't see it if you're listening, but yes, there's logos behind Bobby where he's sitting, and now I see it. I see the diamond, I see the home plate, totally see it. So today you have a dental practice, but you also have, you alluded to it, a podcast, you're writing books, you're coaching other dental practices as well. Yes. That's a continuation of what you just told us about, just,
because
permission to give, and this is what it turns into, right?
Yeah, because when you look at me, I believe dental schools, and how I started coaching dentistry is I remember that I had a mentor, and everyone needs mentoring. I don't care who you are on the podcasting, whether you're a dentist, whether you're an assistant, whether you're just somebody listening. Everybody needs coaching and mentoring. And I think that we all can just agree to that. And if we don't agree with that, then I would challenge. But I had a guy one time, I had an oral surgeon buddy of mine. He says, when you become a dentist, you're a doctor first. And I never forgot that. And I always remembered, okay, hold on a minute. I'm a doctor first. I just specialize in the mouth. And I treat that seriously. So my first part of it was, how do I bridge the gap between dentistry and medicine? That was like my thing. And now I realize these young kids getting out of dental school, like if I could teach them all the mistakes I made over 2 decades of doing dentistry and speed up their process to really run a business and understand that dentistry, yes, it is dentistry, but it's a business. And dental schools do a great job of teaching you how to pass the board, but they're really not ready for the real world. And so when I created the Dentist CEO brand, which is another brand of it, is just me giving back to another dentistry in a way that I want to help the youth. I want to help young dentists. I want to help guys that are maybe 20 years in dentistry that are struggling to break through that barrier, because a lot of times we get stuck in the practice and we're not working on the practice. And I figured if I could bridge that gap, that'd be awesome. And it's just another way, Carl, for me I was put on this earth, I feel, to make an impact. And it's just another way for me to help make an impact in this world. And that's where the Dentist CEO brand created from. So
got it. Understood. Okay. So for you, the question is, when did you get the marketing bug? I'm looking at some other questions that you supplied, and really they focus on growing revenue, converting a patient into revenue, which is that's the relevant way to ask it. It's a very kind of, business marketing question. So when did you realize, oh my God, I need to pay some attention to marketing?
Well, it's kind of a trick question. I love that question.
I didn't mean it to be that way.
No. I realized, okay, I made the mistake early on with marketing. And this is what I think a lot of dentists make the mistake on is they market, and whether it's the yellow pages, whether it's a billboard, because there's 2 different types of marketing. You have marketing that's branding, which understand that you got billboards and stuff like that, where you're just trying to brand. And then you have target marketing, which you have your social medias, you have a lot of things where you can target market, right? So, but what I made the mistake on is I was hiring marketing companies and doing things, and the phone would ring, but yet it wouldn't convert to sales. And so then I realized, okay, I got a problem. It's not the marketing that's the problem. It's the people that's the problem. So I had to go backwards. You almost had to, if I was going to tell a dentist on marketing, make sure your staff knows what's going on, 1. And 2, make sure they're trained to answer the phones right. Because we always blame marketing companies. We blame all these people. Oh, your marketing didn't work, blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, marketing's job is just to get the phone to ring. That's it. And we have to accept that, right? And we got to then convert. So early on, I was throwing money away. I wasn't getting the results, but I realized it was never the marketing I was doing. Well, a little bit, but it was really that my team wasn't trained good enough to handle the marketing, or I didn't do a good enough job of target marketing. And so I would challenge anybody, before you market, know who your ideal patient is. and know really what culture you're trying to create in your practice, because not every patient is right for you, just like you're not right for every patient. And I think so many times we have this scarcity mindset. We're so afraid that if we tell a patient no, or if it doesn't fit within our needs, that we're doing something wrong. I would argue the other way. I would say you would get your ideal patient and you market towards that. And that's, once I figured that out and got my staff trained, that's when my marketing bug kind of going there. Then I just played a game. I'm like, okay, well, I love implant dentistry. So then I'm like, well, obviously early on, you're going to build hygiene department, right? You're going to focus on getting new patients in here. And then if you're not skilled in doing implants and ortho, that's your focus point. But I would still challenge you, what is your ideal patient? And the reason why it's important to know that is that if somebody's marketing for you, they need to know what even they're going after. And so it's very critical that you take the time before you invest all this money and think marketing doesn't work. One, to train your team. Secondly, what is your ideal patient? That would be the.
And so for
anyway,
yeah, so for you, does it start for your ideal patient? Does it start with a patient in need of implants?
Now, as my career's evolved, probably now, yes. I mean, but that's how I've scaled my practice, right? But early on, no, it was really just what age groups was I looking after? What type of patients do I want? You know, it's something basic, like, okay, I want a patient who pays on time, right? I want a patient who shows up to their appointments, you know, just basic stuff, but you literally are creating the future. And marketing really is nothing but an avenue to help cause and create the future you want in your practice. So that's what I go after. I put, like, we all talk about vision boards. So I literally will have, what is my ideal patient? And we read it every morning huddle to my team as, who's our ideal patient? And the reason why we do this is because we're not only reminding ourselves, but we're reminding our patients. We even have paperwork that says, here's our ideal patient. Here's what you can expect. And we kind of are creating a culture at the same time. And then once you create that environment and that culture, then you can focus on, am I going to do internal marketing? Am I doing external? But really, I would always focus early on internal. I think internal is the key early on. And then once you get internal right, then you can branch out and you can specialize. So
God, amen and amen and amen. A couple of thoughts. First, yes, if the people who pick up the phone are screwing up the calls, stop your marketing spend and fix that first. Had a couple of clients where we've got one right now where they listen to all the phone calls. We record them and we can listen to them. And then I listen to him get angry about them, but he's honest. Like he's not denying it. You know, he just wasn't aware of it. And then the other thought, unrelated, is along with who's your ideal patient, the other question is that you got to answer is, and what's different about us? Why would that patient choose us as opposed to anybody else? Because there are choices out there. It's competitive, something else they don't teach you in dental school. It sounds not so pleasant when doctors, you know, when doctors of any stripe have to think about competition, but it's there. And people like me are comparing, you know, we are.
Yeah. And so my philosophy and my practice is, I always look at, okay, if I was a patient, so if I reverse engineer it, right? If you reverse marketing, okay, I have a wife, I have 3 kids, I'm busy, we're all busy. In this world we live in, it's a fast world. I always say, okay, what is my barrier? Like, what is my barrier? Like, what is this one thing? If I went to an office, what frustrates me? And I always say it's time. Mine's time. Everyone else might have a different spin. Mine's time. I don't have time. I don't have time. We all say we don't have time. So I built a practice marketing towards people that don't have time. So I literally said, okay, well, if that's what bothers me, so dentistry, who controls more time than we do, right? If you're efficient with time. So I built the practice on, okay, if I can meet all their needs in one place and I can save them time, what patient would I gravitate towards? And that's what I meant by that. I'm literally looking at what is my pain points. And that's another thing with marketing is, what is the pain point? What is your client's pain point? What are you after? And so many times they don't like you said, they don't teach this in dental school. What does your brand colors represent? What does your website look like? What does your social media page look like? What is your personality? So many times I call it the nerd fraternity in dentistry. Like, we're too afraid to show our personality. Like, God forbid if we actually say we're human and we smile and we, you know, it's not everything. People don't want the stuffy dentist. They want the guy that you can take the coat off and this is who I am. And I built a practice in a culture saying, this is who I am. And I expose myself. And that's why some of the books, some of the social media things, it's just exposing me to become more vulnerable. And when you become more vulnerable, you become more relatable, people are going to gravitate towards you. So that's
Yeah.
Look, at marketing's not hard. It's really not.
It's not, but you know what? You hit on the things that most people jump over. Most people, if you ask them what's marketing, they wouldn't say it this way, but they'd be describing advertising, which is a part of marketing. But if you're not clear on who you're going after, your target patient, and what you're trying to say, why would they ever choose me? Advertise away, my friend. It's all going to be a waste because you're going to be spraying it all over the place. You're not going to be clear, and nobody's going to understand what you're trying to say.
And Carl, at the end of the day, let's be honest. You could look at every Google review in the world. Never once did they ever say, "Oh my God, the dentist had the best crown prep." They never say that. You know what they say, Carl? Great experience, great ambiance, great. They're friendly. They're this. They're on time. They're efficient. So if you want to market to something, market to that. Market to the experience. Market to the wow factors for the patient. Why should they pick you? Whether it's comfort menus, whether it's like. Everyone listening to this podcast can steal whatever I do because I don't believe in competition, and you want to compare that. It's cool. What a privilege. I hand out bottles of wine to my patients as a welcome gift. I'm not saying they're drinking it in the chair, but it's like, oh, welcome to the practice. And you might say, why a bottle of wine? Why is it that I won't hand out generic water? Like, okay, one, I'm from Flint. There's a Flint water crisis. So I don't want to hand out generic water.
Yeah.
I also will challenge every single person. People pay for value. People pay for value. If you hand somebody a water bottle that has your logo and they know you bought it from some company, you put your logo on it, that's fine. That's branding. You can do whatever you want. And I hand out Fiji water. I hand out Evian. I hand out what we perceive as high quality water. Now, whether it's better than any other water, who really knows?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's a perceived value. And the reason why I do this is because I want the patient to know they're important to me. And those little things, those little, lip balms that have your logos on it, the little wine bottles that have your logos on it, whatever it is, you say, oh my God, we so appreciate you, right? Or whether it's, you don't want to give out wine, give Amazon gift cards, whatever it is, give them something for choosing you.
Yeah.
And that's, we could go on.
And there it is. And a lot of people get sucked into, God, is it an arms race of giveaways? No. Dr. Bobby Grassi has decided that his whole mission is to be appreciative, among other things. And this is how he chooses to express it. And if he's going to go do it, might as well be memorable at the same time. There's the strategy. There's the logic. There's why it makes sense. It's not an arms race of tchotchkes and crap. It's funny, my dentist, they do the smartest thing and it takes like 30 seconds. It used to go in, you finish, there's 2 or 3 minutes in between the hygienist being done and the dentist coming in, and we're sitting there. Then you get up, you leave, you go to the front desk and make your next appointment. Well, now in those 2 to 3 minutes of nothing, the hygienist says, hey, want to schedule your next appointment? I'm like, yeah, I do. That's a freaking great idea. We schedule it. I'm out. And now the front desk isn't bothered by me. And all the 30-second all day long of people like me coming, it's just these little things, Little
things. It's
I love it.
Yeah. When you become patient-centric versus doctor or staff-centric, that's the change.
Yeah.
What we have to realize in this world, and I always say, Janet Jackson said it the best. What have you done for me lately? Like, I always joke about that song, but that is the greatest song in the world. You can think you have loyalty in your patients. I want everyone to hear this. You really don't. You're as good as your last visit with them. That's it. And hopefully you have enough in the emotional account where if you do screw it up, hopefully they love you enough to stay. But at the end of the day, every time you're on stage, every single moment you're on stage, and you got to make them feel not like number. I mean, I have a big practice. Very, very, very proud to tell you I have a very successful practice. I probably over 6,000 active patients, but I got to make sure that the one patient feels as great as the 6,000th patient, and the second patient feels as good as that patient. And look, I'm not on this podcast to tell you I'm perfect. I'm not. Yeah. The difference is when you are conscious about creating an environment or experience for the patient, that's when your marketing it's easy and it blows up.
Right. Yes. There's so much in there, but you know what? It really can be boiled down. It's step one. Who's your target patient? Like, get granular. It's not somebody with bad teeth. I mean, if that's all you got, it's not gonna go very far. And the other one is, the second part is, what's different about you? And the third part, I like what you said, is now reverse engineer it. Imagine that they're coming in to your practice. What's the best experience? Because clinically, it's going to be good. Clinically, it's supposed to be good. That's that's not the differentiator it used to be. It's supposed to be good. So how are you going to be different in ways that are valuable in other ways?
Well,
right? I mean,
especially for people like, maybe sometimes you're not as okay extroverted like I am. Okay, fine. Okay, can you add another skill set to you that if they come to your practice, they get this, whether it's get creative, whether it's massage therapy, whether it's paraffin wax for your hands, whether it's whatever it is. I mean, whether it's a business concierge center, I don't know. My point is get creative. And even if you struggle as a dentist and you're hearing this, who loves doing this? Other people that work for you. So
yeah.
give up the autonomy, give up a little bit of your power and say, look at what would you view as ideal, and get the team involved, get everybody involved in a sense where they feel like they're part of something bigger. I mean, when you do that, that's when the culture changes. Their marketing, they come up with ideas. There's a lot of creative people in this world, whether they're a janitor, whether they're freaking whatever they are, whether they're a mechanic, whether they are an assistant, whether they're front desk, whether they're just answering the phones. There's a lot of creative people out here that know what it's like to be a patient. And so look, take advice from everybody. Be humble enough to learn from everybody.
Yeah, and then if you do it that way, you know what? Some good ideas, they work. Now they feel ownership. There's some pride. It's all positive. How can that
Absolutely.
be bad? How can that be bad? So when you're coaching, when you're with your coaching hat on, you're coaching under the dental practice owners. Like, what's the most common thing you see that you think they're doing well, and that you think, oh man, you got to change that up?
I think that's an interesting question. I think what they do, I don't think people have as much confidence as they portray. So I think when they're trying to do dentistry, they get so stuck in only seeing it one way that sometimes they don't see it in a different way. They don't see how to create that profit margin, whether it is, and they don't understand that dentistry, in fairness, it is sales. It's just an ethical form of sales. Like
Yeah.
they get so stuck up in that. It's like marketing. Like you want people to buy cheeseburgers at McDonald's, so you got to sell cheeseburgers, right? You want people to, not that we want perfect teeth, but you want people to say yes to treatment plans. I think they do sometimes people have their own limiting beliefs, and so they limit their growth by their own belief system, meaning that,
Yeah.
well, here's a good example. If I remember not having money, and then I judge everybody else in Flint, Michigan of not having money, the odds of me getting sales or turnover is not high. So I got to just assume that I don't judge people. I allow them to say yes to the best. I speak in ways that gives them all the options, and I just shut up and I just be me. Like, so you always say, and I say this verbally to the patients, there's a lot of things you can do. Like, they don't have the verbal skills. They know scientifically that, okay, you need an MO prep. Okay, that's great, but do you tell them what else is the alternative? What else can you do? Hey, if I was going to do this, I would say yes to the best. Talk implant dentistry. Even if you don't know implant, talk to them, give them all their options. And I think young dentists don't know how to do that. Older dentists don't know how to make a profit. So there's two different things.
Interesting. Why don't they know how to make a profit? That's a part of marketing people don't talk about, because you got to serve a market profitably. So if you're
right, so
shooting yourself in the foot.
I feel like it's Parkinson's law, right? Your debt always rises to meet your income, and so you're always working against that. And I think what happens is we get brainwashed to think that if we grow, we need more staff, and it's not really true. So then you end up hiring more staff because your staff complains, and then you figure out, oh my God, I had 24 people. I'll give you a great example. I grew my practice almost $1.5 million in 1 year, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my staff's overworked. I gotta hire 25 people. My profit margin went like this. Even though I grew my practice 1.5 million, I was basically had enough revenue to pay for my team. That's it. That's it. So even though I was growing, everything was great, I was losing money. And then I had to get smart and go, okay, what if I just paid certain people more money, and then yet we all work together and it was more synergistically, right? Because what happens sometimes is when I mean older people don't know how to make profits, is they think they got to hire more people, when all reality, more people just get lazier. They think someone else is going to do it versus just getting them to say, okay, here's what we can do. And really coming up with a strategy. Like I always say, my payroll should be 25 to 26% of what I do. I know that's not we're talking about marketing, but I'm just giving an example. So if I'm a $10 million practice, okay, it doesn't really matter how big your practice is. I got $2.6 million to go over payroll, period, end of story. That's it. And that's what you're always putting things in buckets, right? Marketing, sometimes you go, you got to look at it. How many new patients are you getting, right? And what is your return on that investment? So I take collections. So I say, whatever I'm collecting, forget about anything else. My new patient's worth XYZ. So in my practice, if I get 50 new patients, 60 new patients, my new patient range is about $3,000 for that new patient. That's what I get in return. So I know that, okay, if I get 50 new patients, and it cost me 10 grand, but I'm really getting, what is that? $150,000
Yeah.
in revenue for, like something like that.
Yeah.
It's a good investment. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm cool because
Yeah.
I'm on the positive. But so many times people just aren't tracking it, and so they don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, how much is your leads, what it is, and so many. When I say you need to be the dentist CEO, we all know how to be a dentist. We don't know how to run a business, and that's what I mean about older dentists. They tend to put all the power in the office manager, and they don't control their finances. I know my P&Ls. I know my balance sheets. I know what my debt ratio is. I do my cash flow transfers. I do all my QuickBooks transactions. I do my own payroll. You don't have to do that. That's what works for me. But you got to have a pulse on everything. Then you know what you can spend in marketing, and that's whether it's internal marketing or external, it doesn't matter as long as you're getting patients. I will tell you this: if you're building a culture, if you're building that ideal patient, and you already know you have that ideal patient in your practice, I would rather see you put $200 on that internal marketing patient ever than the external. But that's a different conversation.
Yeah, that's right. But you hit on a huge thing. I mean, the next question is, what's the number one piece of advice regarding marketing for dentists? I'm going to actually answer it, which is think of it as an investment with some kind of return rather than an isolated cost. I meet a fair and not just dentists, but I'll just say it, probably a higher proportion of dentists have it's a cost, therefore it's expensive than other specialties that I encounter.
Yeah, but it goes back to Carl, it goes back to the mindset, right? And it goes back to a scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset. And I know we talk about mindset, but mindset is probably one of the biggest things you can have in your life. Is the glass half full, is it half empty? It's really how you look at everything, right? And then, so to me, it's like every single thing you do, from every software, from every equipment, from a CBCT machine to people ask me, I've had a CBCT for 10 years. And they're like, well, how much do you charge the patients? I said, I don't always charge the patient. They're like, what do you mean? I mean, the machine's $100,000. I get it, but the value of that machine is more than charging the patient. I sell treatment plans through that CBCT. So you're right. I might not be getting $150 or $300 every time I use it. You're absolutely correct. But let me answer you this question. What does it cost you after you're paid for it anymore? Nothing. It's just a piece of equipment. But if I can sell a $20,000 treatment plan already, I can show somebody why they should not do a root canal based on a 2D film versus a 3D film. And I can show you why this is better, but then it upsells dentistry. I would argue, was that way more valuable than the $300? And don't lose that opportunity. If you give something for free, tell the patient you did it for free. Tell the patient, look, I love you so much that I'm doing a $300 procedure at no cost. Remember, everything is a perceived value. You're like, well, that's not true. No, it is true. Because if I could charge somebody $300 for this, and I'm not charging this person for this, did I do something that for free that was $300 value? Yes.
You sure did.
So we're so afraid to just tell people things. And all people want to know is, wow. And you'd be shocked of how many times. A good example today, Carl, it happened today. My barrier is time. I'll tell you a real life scenario on the podcast. What happened to me?
Let's have it.
I screwed up. I got so distracted in my day. I forgot the patient was in the chair. And I know there's dentists in here that have got sidetracked in ADHD moments and forgot.
Sure.
Most dentists would go, oh, Mrs. Smith, I'm ready to go now, and never say a word. Say that I was just so busy, I was running late. You know what I said? And I'm making up the name, obviously HIPAA rules.
Sure.
All right, Mrs. Smith, I'm so sorry I was late. That's my fault. I totally got distracted. I'm not even going to lie to you. Like, it is shame on me for doing this. So here's what I'm going to do for you. Do you drink wine? I do. Here's a bottle of red wine. And oh, by the way, here's a $10 gift card. That's it. You know, they want to know, they just want to know you're human. They just want to know that, you know what, you own your mistakes. Because if I'm going to challenge every dentist, every health professional, anybody listen to this. If you're going to hold your patients to a different standard, you better uphold to those same standards.
Yes.
So my biggest piece of advice is if you're going to demand something from somebody else, you better be first one to do it. You got to lead by example. And so, yeah, there's many times I make mistakes, but own them. And the patients love it more. We end up laughing. We end up dancing as she left. She didn't even think about me being late anymore. No. She thought about, oh my goodness. And you would have saw her face like I handed her $1 million. And it was like, that's why I love you. Like, that is the best marketing you could ever do. Yeah. And then you know what I said? Ready? Mrs. Smith, thank you so much for saying that. I'm so sorry I'm late again. But by the way, if you had such a great experience, why don't you give me a review?
I was just going to say, she's going to tell 7 or 8 other people about it. She's already the greatest,
or refer a friend to me. Guess what, guys? It costs you nothing.
Yeah.
You had, It's not hard. Carl, it's
Yes,
not hard.
I know. We grab simplicity, or we grab complexity from the jaws of simplicity sometimes.
Yes, sir.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, I want to kind of bring us to the finish line, and I want to start with, tell us a bit more about, we know you as a dentist now. Tell us a bit more about Growing with Grossi, or other ways that that others can kind of interact with you, and particularly if there are dentists out there saying, I'd like to at least start following this guy, or maybe even call him. Just tell us a bit more about what you offer.
Obviously, I offer from just how to start up a practice, from coaching to mentoring, whether it's from dental assistants, whether it's just doctors themselves that are trying to get their mind right, even on finances. So I have a financial component. But Growing with Grossi, you brought that up first. I look at it. It's my podcast. It talks about not only just dentistry, but really mindset and really how to get your mind right. So I have a mindset with me that I feel is one percenters. Carl, you're that person. There's a lot of successful dentists in this world that have a certain mindset. A lot of people in this world that just have a different mindset, right? Whether they were a victim of something, whatever, they somehow can get out of their own way and create a better mindset. So I reach out with youth with that. Everybody's welcome with Growing with Grossi. I do live calls every Tuesday, live on YouTube, live on Instagram and all that stuff. We do it every Tuesday. So it's from 1 to 1:30. As a matter of fact, the call will be on in the next probably 10 minutes, right?
Okay.
So we do that every Tuesday. And then on my podcast I also have the info at The Dentist CEO. TheDentistCEO.com is my main website for my coaching and mentorship programs. If people are interested in just kind of researching me, looking me up, I do free consultations. I try to really, at the end of the day, whether you hire me as your coach or mentor or a trainee, my job, and I've told you this, Carl, is to make the greatest impact in this world. And it's not always, I don't always have to get paid finances. Is it great to somebody to hire me? Absolutely. But if I can just touch your life and grace your presence and maybe give you hope where there's no hope, that's really the intent of the whole thing. And so that's how you can get a hold of me, man.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you again for coming on Practice Care. It's you got yourself one hell of a day. We're going to put all of Bobby Grossi's contact info in the show notes so that it's there when you want to access it. And just a couple of points before we wrap up. First, if you're someone like Dr. Grossi, who is in practice, you've got some experience on the business side that you think others would benefit from, we want to hear from you. If you're someone like me that serves private practices and's got some experience, we want to hear from you too. In the show notes for his episode and every episode, there's a link, a couple of questions. Tell us what's on your mind so that we can get you scheduled as soon as possible. And finally, if you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to Practice Care on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're on all the major platforms, wherever you listen to them. Subscribe and start listening. Thanks very much. And until next time.